On this slide here, we can see visually the direct methods versus the reciprocal method versus a step-down method. So again, in the direct method, none of the support services are, that cost is not allocated at all between the support services. It's only allocated down to patient services. So in this case, physical therapy and internal medicine. When we look at the reciprocal method here, what you can see is that, there actually is, recognizes that there's support department interdependencies. So among human resources, housekeeping, and administration, there is that there is direct, there is billing between those groups. And so this method says, okay, housekeeping does use human resources. And that's how it gets the name. It recognizes that, all services and departments provide to and receive from other departments. So there's reciprocity. So the good news about this method is it captures all of the interdepartment support relationships. So there's kind of no information is ignored. There's no biases in terms of cost allocation process. The bad news is that it relies on the simultaneous solution of a series of equations representing utilization of interdepartment support services. And so, and that can become really complex, and explaining that sometimes to department heads, isn't always easy, and sometimes just confuses them. And so for some people, if you have an organization where some of the leaders that you're working with are not kind of financially savvy, this method, the reciprocal method, really can confuse people. The third is the step-down method. And, what this shows on the right side of the page, it represents the compromise. It's not quite as simple as the direct method, but it's also not as complex or kind of gnarly as the reciprocal method. And so the way that you should, you can think about the step-down method is that it does recognize some interdepartmental support, but it doesn't fully recognize the full range of interdependencies. So, it derives its name from the fact that there's a sequential step-down pattern of the allocation process, which requires that the allocation take place in a specific sequence. So in this sequence, all the direct costs of human resources are allocated to both patient service departments and the other two support departments. But then, as it moves down, housekeeping costs, which consist of both direct and indirect costs, so the allocation from human resources are allocated to patient service departments, and the remaining support department administration. And finally, the direct and indirect costs of administration are allocated to the patient service departments. The final allocation includes human resources, housekeeping, and administration costs, because a portion of these support costs have been, quote, stepped down to administration. So, the critical difference between step-down and reciprocal method is that after each allocation is made in the step-down method, a support department is removed from the process. So even though housekeeping and administration provide support services back to human resources, these indirect costs are not recognized simply because human resources is removed from the allocation process after that initial allocation. So, again, such costs are recognized in the reciprocal method versus in the step-down method. So this can be confusing. I recommend, you listen to this slide a few times, take notes. There's a good chunk of this in the reading. So, I think that I know that for the final, you're definitely going to want to know the difference between these and what they represent.